So hello everyone, my name is Mustaphacastles, and as you may or may not know, and thank you for clicking on this video, King, Queen, Monarch. So I have been having a really difficult day. It's not a shocker, I know, and it's annoying, I know. I think it's so repetitive. I think it also just almost sounds as if I'm not really doing anything to feel better, but it really is not the case. That I'm really doing better, but for some reason things don't always work out, or just simple things go wrong, and it really just throws me off guard. So for example, today I have had a really bad migraine that really threw me off guard and really annoyed me. It also felt I just didn't feel good. I don't want to go on too much on about it. I don't really want to talk about it too much. What I did want to talk about today was something that I had seen. It was a sentence. I don't know if I saw it myself, that I saw it from someone, or that I did kind of elaborate on it myself while seeing something that did motivate me, whatever, to write it down. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple quote. So basically, I wrote this down, I think, 2 days ago, and it was, intention doesn't erase impact. And I know it's a really broad topic to talk about, but I have had this question in general so many times cruise through my mind, kind of spiral on about it, because a lot of the times when we perceive something in a specific way, we don't know whether... I'm talking about personal experiences. When I perceived something and I knew that someone normally wouldn't mean whatever action that they did, for me to actually perceive it in such a manner. So what I mean by that is, after a while, when you get close to someone and when you get to know someone, you would know what their actual intentions are, or to the least, we will sort of know, or not know, because we will never know anything about anyone. I think it just depends on whether they want to tell us the truth or not, and you will never be 100% sure if someone is telling the truth or actually just saying something to make you feel better or even make you feel worse. But specifically why I wanted to talk about this was, basically, I find myself a lot of the time when getting through these types of situations that I will elaborate on, specifically when somebody says something and I don't know whether they actually meant it or not, but I perceive it in such a way that I start to question, am I allowed to feel the way I feel right now because of the impact that a specific action had, whether or not their intention was good behind it. So for example, I would be talking to someone and they would say something that would throw me off guard. I know that at the end of the day, nothing always has to be really serious, but because I've gotten used to a lot of really difficult things reoccurring in my life, or just in general putting myself through difficult situations, that I start to struggle with when people are actually mean something. Because a lot of the time when somebody says something, whether or not, once again, they mean it, or whether or not their intention behind it was a bad intention, and it still had a bad impact on me, or a really difficult, it just in general a really hurtful impact on me, that I would question whether, am I just exaggerating the way that they did something, or the way that I perceived it, or did they just mean it as a joke? It's raining a lot, so I hope that isn't going to bother you guys the whole entire video. But once again, I can control anything. I just want to make this video, so I'm not gonna stop. But yeah, so I do start to question whether, when talking about, when just somebody's talking to me and they say something hurtful, whether or not they mean it, whether or not that it was their intention, whether or not it just slipped out, but still I would question it. Am I exaggerating, or am I just allowed to feel the way I am feeling currently because of the impact that a certain situation had on me, whether or not it was their intention to make me feel bad. This is going to be fun, you guys. This is going to be fun. I love how Mother Nature is like listening to me. Like, I'm having a bad day. She started raining. She's like, hey, we on the same boat. We on the same boat. Thank you. No, but like, it's so annoying. I can't, like, it just, like, at the end of the day, I know for a fact that when we perceive something, it's allowed, like, we are allowed to feel our feelings because of somebody's action. It's allowed, you know? But for some reason, I would still question, am I actually just feeling what I'm allowed to feel, quote unquote, the feeling of whatever they did to me, but still, am I exaggerating it? Is it my disorder kind of peaking? Is it my disorder playing its role, the whole black and white thinking, you know, kind of exaggerative thinking, where instead of kind of trying to find a middle ground on certain things, I would just simply go in fully defensive mode when somebody says something, instead of just perceiving it in a better way. But why would I, you know, like, of course, I am going to take in consideration that people in general make mistakes. I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I don't know. I think that's a fine, but whatever. But still, am I actually allowed, you know, to feel the way? Because it really is something that bugs me. It really is something that bugs me. So what I had written down as well was basically just the difference between the intention and impact, just to kind of explain that. So of course we do know what the difference is between the intention and an impact of something. So when we intend to do something, we are, you know, we have a specific intention. You know, when saying something to someone, we could mean it in a bad way, we could mean it in a good way, we could just mean it as a observational whatever, you know, as a simple observation. But still, we could never actually prepare ourselves for the way it could be felt by another person. You know, when somebody says something to me, whether or not they're joking or something with me that is actually kind of my fault, is that I like to laugh with a lot of parts of my own life. I like to joke about a lot of things that I've went through. But for some reason, when somebody kind of tries to double down on a certain thing that I went through, or I just laugh with my joke, like we laughed with my trauma, for example, and I hear someone else kind of laugh with mine, or just like kind of mention it briefly, I do find myself questioning whether did I kind of imply or kind of allow them to joke about a thing that I went through just because I kind of openly joked about it in front of them. Because once again, they could mean it simply in a good way, or just kind of to make me feel better about something that I've went through. But at the same time, whether or not, whatever their intention could have been, it doesn't change the fact that it was going to have an impact on me, you know? When I say happy birthday to someone, I do, for a fact, expect, like, I suppose that when saying that to someone, I am going to make someone feel better or feel seen. But at the same time, when I say happy birthday to someone, on the day that it isn't their birthday, they're going to kind of feel ignored. They're going to kind of feel mistaken or left out, as if I didn't really put the effort to acknowledge our relationship and acknowledge those specific aspects of who they are, you know? Whether it's who they are as a person, whether it's their, I don't know, sign, you know, or whether it's their favorite color, you know. It's just one of those things, you know. You intend it in a specific way, but still, that doesn't mean that the intention that you had behind something was necessarily going to have the same impact on someone that, or the impact would align with the intention you had, you know. So that's something that I want to talk about, because, for example, when somebody would, you know, step on your foot, for example, by accident, most of the time they didn't mean it to hurt you, you know, they didn't mean to step on your foot, but still, it would bruise up, you would still feel pain because of the fact that they stood on your foot, but you would know, or hopefully know, after getting to know that friend and know that they're not a hurtful human being or someone that would hurt you purposely, you would know that it's simply something that happened, and it's simply, you know, it just happened. It just happened. They did it by accident, but it would still hurt, but You're also allowed to feel that hurt. But still, I would find myself questioning whether did I actually put my foot there for them to actually cause them to step on my foot, you know? I would kind of find ways to blame myself in situations. Not blame myself, but just kind of feel whether my perception of a situation was something that has to do with my own problems, causing me to kind of feel more sensitive to certain situations, and eventually causing me to actually think whether or not my perception is allowed to be my perception, and I am allowed to feel the way I am feeling. So in general, I also want to talk about how a lot of the time the impact that something has on someone or on yourself is more important than the actual intention, you know? Because when let me just think about a specific situation. When you have a good intention, but you let me just see what I wrote down. Yeah, so when having a certain intention behind something, whether or not it was going to have a bad impact on someone, the impact is still going to be there, you know? The intention is not really going to be actualized or real in the real life human world because it doesn't align with how somebody else experienced it, you know? Or it doesn't align with how it actually ended up being. Some could say that it even could be an excuse because although you meant it in a good way, although it was your intention to make somebody feel better, you ended up making them feel worse. So the impact that supposed intention had isn't just going to excuse you harming another person, you know? Harm is still going to be harm, whether or not you had intended it or not, you know? Although it once again is a different type of thing to talk about whether something is accidental or not, but still nonetheless it's still something harmful, you know? Although once again it's something that you know could debate on or have a discussion on about, because accidental harm is also kind of different from purposeful harm. But then again, you would have to really define them. But I know, like, obviously, we both know, like you and me, we both know that there's a difference between accidental harm and actual purposeful harm. But, you know, that's a topic for something else. I don't really want to go on too much about that. What I also wrote down was basically how when noticing that something had an impact on someone, whether or not you intended it to be like that, it is also important to kind of acknowledge that it did have an impact on someone and not just kind of exclude the possibility of you having to apologize because you didn't intend it, you know? Even if somebody didn't intend to hurt you, they still did. And I know owing someone an apology could kind of appear vague or cliche, but still, it's just basic human decency, you know? When noticing that you did something that hurt someone, even if it was behind all of your intentions or but like it wasn't even how or what you meant to do, you still kind of owe them an apology, you know? It's kind of unfair to expect that whether or not you did something had a good impact, like you had a good intention behind it, but still it had such a bad impact on someone that you can't really just say, well, yeah, like, I didn't mean it that way, so I'm sorry if you felt it that way. No, because that way, you are just simply still disagreeing that what you did is simply okay just because you intended it to be or have a different impact. You can't control what different type of impact something will have on someone. You can kind of expect it, you know? You can't expect that saying you look beautiful is going to have a positive impact on someone. But at the same time, you could also say you look beautiful to someone who just, for example, doesn't acknowledge it to the point where, I don't know, how do I explain it? I don't want to sound weird and whatever, but for someone that, for example, I'm just like putting out there like a really simplified version. If someone is convinced that, for example, they aren't good, like they aren't good looking or they aren't beautiful, you know, or for example, someone who is really insecure about their masculinity and they wouldn't appreciate hearing you're beautiful, they would have much rather hear you're handsome. They would, you know, saying that they look beautiful might have a bad impact on them, you know. I think, once again, I think that's like a really different situation from actually hurting someone by saying something. But still, once again, if they perceived it in such a way, you could apologize, but I wouldn't apologize if I said someone is looking beautiful and they would have much rather heard a more like a bigger term, you know. Like, I don't know, I think I'm kind of contradicting myself here by saying that even if they, I don't know, I just, by talking about a compliment is so much different than just saying something that is completely wrong, you know. Like when you're perceiving something and you're saying you look beautiful or you look handsome, okay, they could perceive it in a different way. I'm actually just going to leave it that to y'all, because I don't care if somebody calls me beautiful or somebody calls me handsome, whatever. I'm just going to say thanks, you know, thank you for saying that. Whether or not I agree with it or not, I just appreciate it. But, you know, if you have the type of confidence where you want to hear handsome instead of beautiful, that's all you. So, whether if you wanted to, I mean, the people pleaser in me would, of course, apologize for everything. Especially if I'm attached to that person. They would, I'm not going to talk too much about that. But, yeah, so like that is something that I've noticed myself, that I don't know if I'm kind of contradicting myself with what I just said earlier, but I don't know, I think you guys know what I mean. I'm not saying anything weird by saying, hey, you look handsome, hey, you look beautiful, like that's your problem, like hello, I'm not you know, I know I'm just like saying something, right? Like I just said the whole thing, like I just went on about all of these things, but this specific thing, like imagine somebody says you look beautiful and you're like, oh, actually, I look handsome. Like, what? Shut the fuck up, please. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but whatever. Please, like, please. You know, if it actually is something, if you perceive it in such a way you're, like, actually hurt by me saying you're beautiful, okay, look, I will respect it, you know, maybe, no, I'm not even kidding. If it could literally be a triggering word to someone, you know, it could be something that annoys someone. It could be something that they heard from, you know, while going through a traumatic event. Okay, I will respect it. I'm sorry. But I'm just talking about a more hypothetical situation, you know? So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about more specifically. I don't know if I want to go on too much longer about this, but I did really want to like talk about that, because there are so many times in life where I had experienced or perceived something where I had, instead of just kind of allowing myself to feel that way, I started questioning whether I was allowed to feel that way just because my perception of a situation or how I perceived something, even though they had maybe intended it in the wrong way. At the end of the day, I don't really have to take all of these different things into consideration when perceiving something, when somebody says something to me. Like, of course, it's a normal thing. I think I may be over-exaggerating it once again. It's just kind of my life's purpose at this point, exaggerating everything. But, you know, once again, what was I talking about? Once again, I would question whether I was allowed to perceive it in such a way, instead of just perceive it in a way that I literally appeared to me. Like, if somebody says something mean to me, I'm going to feel it as a hurtful thing that somebody says to me, you know. But because of so many times that I was attached to something that I struggle with, I would let so many things slide. I would allow so many things, to the point where when I perceived something, I felt as if the way that I perceived it was wrong. I got in so many, like when I was attached to so many toxic human beings, so many, like I don't have a roster base. I really don't have a roster. That isn't the case. But so many, I think it's once again a really subjective amount. You're like many, that could be 2 to you, but that could be 11,000. You know what I mean. But I would find myself in certain situations that, because I didn't really want to change the way I perceived somebody, that I would question whether or not I was allowed to have felt that way because of an intention that they could possibly have. For example, if I would look at someone with rose-colored glasses, or like, what is it, heart, like, what is it, like, rose-colored glasses, like heart, whatever, you know what I mean. If I would look through these romanticized glasses that I kind of put on my face just because I don't want someone to leave, or my brain just kind of fills in the gaps of the flaws that somebody has, which everyone has, of course, and it would put such a vision of them, or create a vision of them, of something that was, once again, it was something bad of them, it was something really difficult and to deal with, and something hurtful that they would do to me, or just a specific thing that they were aware of doing to me. But I would just kind of flip it and change it and literally put it upside down, just because I didn't really want to believe that whatever that they did had a bad intention behind it. So when I started, this detaching myself and just allowing myself to perceive things in the way that I'm allowed to perceive them as a personal human being, instead of forcing myself to perceive things in other ways, because maybe they had intended it in a different way, but at the end of the day, I still felt it. It still had an impact on me. So the intention, once again, does not erase the actual impact that it had on me. If they said something, I'm literally kind of falling into repetition here, but if they say something so weird and so mean about me, whether or not they had intended it, or whether or not it's something out of the ordinary and it was just something that came out, it would still appear hurtful, It doesn't necessarily mean that our whole entire friendship is going to go to waste, because once again, if a friendship just goes away simply because of one small thing going wrong, is that even a friendship? Like, it was almost as if they were waiting for you to make a thing wrong, or like do something wrong, or maybe I don't know, or you were waiting for them to do something wrong to leave. I know for a fact that people with DBT, as you know, I do have it as well, when we are struggling to detach ourselves from someone else, a lot of the time our brain will kind of start to cling on to different things that they do or say, which will cause us to split, to eventually give us a reason to leave, or kind of split and have the detachment that we need to just eventually leave. I hope that I am kind of clear about what I want to talk about today. I hope you guys aren't confused too much about what I talked about. But I just do want to say that whether or not you mean something, or whether or not you had a good intention behind something, you will never know how somebody else will perceive it. So it's not a bad thing to apologize for something, even though you had intended it in a different way. It's still a human being, and you still hurt them. So even if you intended it in a bad way, or even if you had even if you had intended it in a good way, I'm sorry, but I'm not even sorry. You will never be able to control how somebody else perceives it, and if you're trying to control how somebody else perceives it, then you're kind of manipulative. I'm sorry, babes. I'm just really sorry. But, I'm not going to talk too much about that. I just hope you guys understand what I'm talking about. I think it's really important, definitely in a society where we live in right now, where I feel as if we are too busy worrying about Labubu trades and matcha raves than actually worrying about accountability and all of the things going on in the world. Also, what is a Labubu trade or DL? I don't even know. What is a matcha rave? You guys do your thing, but just know that you can never... things happen. People are human beings. We make mistakes. That's just what makes us human. We have feelings, and somebody that we hurt also has feelings, whether or not we try to hurt them. So just remember that even if you had a different intention than the impact that it eventually had, intention doesn't erase impact. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And once again, my name is Mustafa Mohsen. My TikTok is mustaphacastles. My Instagram is mustafa.mohsen, Mohsen. If you guys have any questions or you want to talk to me, you can always message me on Instagram. And yeah, make sure to leave a like. Leave a like and comment. Comment the red heart emoji if you saw till the end of this video. I will see. I will probably give it a red like myself. No, but everything everywhere all at once. Mustafa out. Thank you for watching.